first of all, I want to say that we're all assuming that everybody here has some kind of Hebrew through movement background. Hopefully you took the online seminar. You may be supervising teachers in your program that do it. You may have taught yourself for a while. You may have just started the online seminar. Hopefully you read the traditional curriculum guide that we have, which has all kinds of great information in the beginning. If that's not you, you're still welcome to be here, but I'd ask that you hold any questions that get us to the basics of Hebrew through movement, and we'll find a way later to help you with that, but I really want to make sure we're dealing with the virtual environment here. I know that as I saw the names get registered, that we have people who are very experienced with Hebrew through movement, and we have people who are just starting out. You may be somewhere in the early modules of the online seminar, or maybe you just completed it, but you don't have that kind of experience. It's okay, we're all in on this together. We are not going to focus in this webinar on the technicalities of using Zoom. That's up to you or whatever system you're using. And we're also, one of the things that I've thought about is how you use Madrichim online. For this particular webinar, we're not going to be focusing on that, but at the end, if there's some ability to ask a question and answer it, we'd be happy to, but I don't want to do that in the beginning. Julie, can you mute Rebecca?
Now. There are more than 6 participants in the meeting.
Okay, I'm now unmuted. This spring, when people ended up going with the stay-at-home orders, I was so impressed, as were the other people who are behind all this, with the creativity that was going on with Hebrew through movement, that you found ways to make it work online. We were at a point where we were doing a lot of review. Kids understood the system, but we saw videos that teachers made. I saw an animation that somebody made. Really clever ways to do things. But as the master teachers who work with the online seminar, Marcia Annucci and Naomi Weiss and I talked, we began wondering, could we do this online in a way that really honors the principles of what's behind Hebrew through movement? It's a very social way of learning. Kids look at each other, as you know, and the way it has worked has energized Hebrew education in a way we haven't been able to do that in part-time synagogue settings with other things. So we don't want to take a step back with how we go online. We want to keep moving forward with that. So here's what we're going to be covering today. We're going to highlight some of the key principles of Hebrew through movement that we think everybody needs to be paying attention to when you move online. Naomi Weiss is going to do that. We have Linda Duke, who's our newest master teacher for Hebrew through movement. We should all give her applause because that's a big accomplishment. And she recorded 3 lessons for us. She had a number of meetings with Marcia and Naomi, who were working on making this transformation with the curriculum. And she brought her kids together. She's going to tell you a little bit more about that, but she has 3 recordings, and we're going to share with you part of one. And that will help us, just seeing how this could work is very helpful to us also. We have that. We're going to go into breakout rooms so you can talk about that. And then Marcia Annucci is going to be the one who's going to talk about everything in relationship to what's in the curriculum guide. So here's what I want to tell you. I also, someone said to me in the beginning, I didn't print it all out. I haven't printed mine all out yet, but the guide is a complement to the regular curriculum in that we don't repeat what's in there. But what Marcia and Naomi did over time is that they created new lessons. They rethought the vocabulary, and Marcia will talk about this a little bit. They, what makes sense for us to do when kids are in their homes and we don't necessarily have certain things automatically available. And they came up with general principles that fit everything. So we're going to talk about that, and that's also in the. So I'm going to turn things over at the moment to Naomi, who's going to unmute and talk about the principles.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Naomi Weiss, and I'm part of the Hebrew Through Movement facilitator team. It's really nice to see everyone here today and continue, dialogue about how we're going to use Hebrew Through Movement in this new virtual reality. I know the pandemic has affected all of our lives, and we're here today to talk about how we can best teach Hebrew Through Movement in a virtual setting. And this is the important part, how to teach in a virtual setting while staying true to the principles of Hebrew Through Movement. So I just wanted to start by reminding everyone that Hebrew Through Movement helps build a foundation for modern communicative Hebrew. And our learning model is based on ways children learn naturally: moving and doing, positive emotional support. We know that our students learn best when they feel safe from embarrassment of not knowing. We know that our students learn best when they can move forward at their own pace. We know best that our students learn best when learning is joyful and playful. So we need to continue to create lessons that begin with a review and a warm-up of past vocabulary. We need to then model or introduce 3 new words, bringing students into the movements and thus the learning. And finally, we need to continue to integrate our new learning with previous knowledge. So among the important principles we need to continue to remember, even in this virtual format, learning is playful. We need to create scripts that are experiential. So that means in addition to movement, we need to create a rich experience that includes props, pictures, and the manipulation of objects. We need to create scripts that are based on language patterns. This is as important as the vocabulary that we will be teaching. We know that students internalize patterns without learning the rules of grammar, and that's why we use the infinitive in Hebrew Through Movement. We need to still create scripts that contain novelty. Commands should be rich and novel so that our students do not anticipate our next steps as the teacher. And we also need to be systematic. We need to introduce terms in a sequentially controlled way. In this new virtual teaching, we still need to prepare scripts. We should consider in advance how vocabulary will be introduced, whether you're going to include hand motions, gestures, body language, props, pictures. We still need to continue to create a rich learning environment. I know we won't be, most of us won't be in a classroom setting, but we still need to consider our own space. How much room do we have in our own space as we teach virtually? Can our students see us? How's the lighting? And then we also need to find out what is in our students' space. Do they have the ability to have authentic props? Are we providing props? Are we providing pictures? We still need to create scripts that set a playful tone, that upbeat, positive reinforcement. We still need to observe our students' comprehension. This might be a little bit harder to do over this new modality. Observing when our students are getting it, maybe having a second set of eyes, madrich or madricha, another teacher in on your class. We still need to maintain having classes that are mostly in Ivrit, except possibly a few introductory English words. And we still need to try to encourage social learning, even over this virtual setting. Encourage our students to watch each other on the screen, encourage them to watch us carefully, and to work on creating that lighter environment with novel commands or silly commands. And then finally, I just wanted to end with a question. So how do students process knowledge virtually? And the good news is that the studies are showing that our brain takes in knowledge the same way as in a face-to-face classroom. And we're also learning that less is more in virtual learning, shorter sessions. So in a way, Hebrew Through Movement is really perfect for this new way we'll have to teach. It's made for these microbursts of learning that everybody is talking about. And hopefully by honoring the principles of Hebrew through movement, we can further enrich our students. So now I'd like to turn it over to Linda, who's going to share with us some of her work.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here with everybody this afternoon. As Nahama mentioned, in a little while, we're going to watch part of one of the videos that I recorded. But I just want to give you a little context for these videos. There are 3 of them total that are included in the new guide. These were all recorded during the summer with children who were part of a much, much larger class last year. We had a very, very large class at my temple. And we used the back of the sanctuary for our lessons. We had lots and lots of space in which children could move around. Very different, of course, than when we're doing it on Zoom. We also had Madrihim in our classes when we were at the temple, and they participated in several different ways. In a Zoom setting, if you want to have a small group follow some of the commands, which you frequently incorporate into your lesson, the easiest way to do that is by calling kids by names, rather than in the classroom where I would divide them into groups and give each group a name, maybe a color or a number, something to tie into our vocabulary. You will not see that as part of the videos. That's only because I was more comfortable not using students' names when I was recording. But it's certainly something that can easily be incorporated when you do a Zoom lesson. The video we're going to show is part of the Rosh Hashanah video. I would encourage you to watch the whole video at some point if you haven't had a chance to. It begins with about a 3.5 minute warm-up, and part of it has a lot of moving around on the parts of the children, lichpots, lihistovev, and so on, because I really wanted to get them engaged and energized and enthusiastic for our lesson. I also intentionally included in the warm-up some vocabulary to review because I knew I was going to be integrating those words with the newer words later in the lesson. So that's all in the part that we're not going to show. We debated a lot about what part of the video to show and how much, and we finally decided to show the segment beginning with me introducing the new vocabulary to the students. It probably runs for about 7 minutes or so, maybe 8 minutes, and we hope that all of you will stay with us during the video. Tapuach. 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 Shofar. 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 Dabash. 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 Tapuach. Shofar. Dabash. Kuah, lakum. Lakum. Lalechet el tapuach. Lalechet el tapuach. Mitzian. Laharim tapuach. Laharim tapuach. Tov ma'od. Lahori tapuach. Lahori tapuach. Laharim shofar. Laharim shofar. Mitzian, kain shofar. Lahorid shofar. Laharim davash. Tov ma'od davash. Lahorid davash. Mitzian. Laharim shofar. Laharim shofar. Kain shofar. Mitzian. Lalechet el buba. Lalechet el buba. Laharim shofar. Laharim shofar. V'lalechet el buba. Lalechet el buba. Buba. Okay, lalechet el buba. Mitzian. Latate shofar lebuba. Latate shofar lebuba. Okay, mitzian. Mitzian. Latate shofar lebuba. Mitzian. Lipos el davash. Lipos el davash. Mitzian. Laharim davash. Laharim davash. Okay, laharim davash. Mitzian. Lahori davash. Laharim davash. Lo tapuach davash. Laharim davash. Laharim. Mitzian. Laharim davash. Okay, mitzian. Laharim davash. Lahisto vade el buba. Lahisto vade el buba. Mitsuyan, lahisto vade el buba. Latate davash labuba. Latate davash labuba. Okay, mitsuyan, latate davash labuba. Mitsuyan, yofe. La roots laat el tapuach. La roots laat el tapuach. La roots laat el tapuach. Hey, mitsuyan, yofi. La harim tapuach. La harim tapuach. La horid tapuach. La hatzbia el tapuach. Lahatzbia al tapuach. Lahatzbia. Lahatzbia. Okay, lahatzbia mitzian. Laharim tapuach. Lahorid tapuach. Lakachat tapuach. Lakachat tapuach. Lakachat tapuach. Lasim tapuach al rosh. Lasim tapuach al rosh. Al rosh, Kay, al rosh, mitziyan, al rosh. Lipot el buba. Lipot el buba. Mitziyan. Lahorid tapuach. Lahorid tapuach. Lasim tapuach al ritzpah. Lasim tapuach, Kate al ritzpah, mitziyan, Kate al ritzpah, tov ma'od. Mitziyan. Lakachat davash. Lakachat davash. Lakachat davash. Lakachat davash. Mitziyan. Mitziyan. Lasim davash al ritzpah. Lasim davash al ritzpah. Kain al ritzpah, mitziyan al ritzpah. Lakachat shofar. Lakachat shofar. Mitziyan. Lasim shofar al rosh. Lasim shofar al rosh. Lehistovev. 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 Mitziyan. Latate latzor. Latate shofar lamora linda. Latate shofar lamora linda. Okay, toda rabah. Latate shofar lamora linda.
So we had some interesting question stuff going on here. And what I want to do is to get us divided into small groups just to have a quick conversation and to ask you basically, what did you see? What did you catch that was different from what you're used to? And sorry, I didn't write down my questions. To someone, Naomi, do you have the questions in front of you? Or Linda? Sorry.
Yes, I have them.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Let's see. The questions were, how does this honor the principle of Hebrew Through Movement? What are its challenges? And what questions does it either raise or answer?
Okay. So that's what we're going to do once we get into the breakout rooms. And we're going to spend probably just about, we'll call it 8 minutes or so in there. And let's just see how it all plays out. Okay. Okay, great. So first of all, I want to say while you were all in your breakout rooms, I had a chance to take a look at the chat with some really interesting questions. But I want to make sure that, thank you, Julie, I am recording. So I want to make sure that we answer some of those, but we're going to be moving it to Marcia in just a minute. I want to see if there are any specific questions or comments that you talked about that you'd want to bring back to the group, either something that was like, oh, everybody should know, or a question that you'd like us to discuss. And while I'm watching to see what happens there, first of all, the videos, you want the links, guess what? They're all in your new to download guide. There are 3 videos that are in there. One is of students that are just starting out. What does it mean to start out with kids in a virtual environment? And Linda does a wonderful job. She starts in English and then she moves to the beginning part of the learning. The second one is lesson 2, where she then begins introducing other words. And as Marsha will talk about, we have some new vocabulary that we're introducing, and that's part of what you'll see. And this one on Rosh Hashanah, which, you know, one of the things that I think happens is that people feel they need to review so much of Hebrew Through Movement at the beginning of the year, and they don't get to the holidays. But if your kids had Hebrew Through Movement last year, for sure you can do that. So let me just touch on a couple things. A couple people have asked about maximum numbers, and other people responded based upon the screen size and what, you know, is going on here. The challenge is that when you have too many people, if you put us on grid, you couldn't see what anybody's doing. And if you really want to be paying attention, that's what we need to be doing. Someone asked how kids got the props. Linda, can you answer that?
Sure.
Yourself?
Yeah, I told the parents of the children who were doing the videos ahead of time what props they were going to be needed, and gave them the option of either finding something around the house. For the level 2, they all had the required things in their home. So it was easy. And for Rosh Hashanah, I gave them the choice of either finding something at their house if they happen to have it, or we sent wonderful pictures that I believe are part of the Hebrew Through Movement link somewhere in Nahama. Am I right on that?
Yes, and we have more coming.
Right, props, the pictures that they used were all from the Hebrew Through Movement program. And as you saw in the video, some kids use authentic items, some use the pictures, and either one was fine. But it is important to have them have the props ready and know ahead of time which ones you want. So in the Rosh Hashanah one, when I also want them to have the doll from their previous lesson, I need to make sure they knew that so they'd have it available for the lesson. And
before we turn over to Marcia, can you mention briefly, Linda, how do you watch the screen and what are you looking for, and what does it mean to you to be doing this live in person as compared to sending out a recording?
Yeah, being live is much better than using a recording. There's no question about it, because I can respond to the students. So as you notice in the Rosh Hashanah one, I had them I used the commands leharim and lehorid several times, sometimes modeling and then stepping back, because I knew that at the beginning the kids were not remembering what those terms meant. And that's okay, they're not going to remember all of them. And we, of course, also had a very long break before doing these lessons. If you're doing a recording, you can't see the children and adapt. I think the adapting to what they're doing and seeing is really, really important. The other thing is that when you're doing it live and rather than a recording, is you can delay as much or as little as you need to when you're giving a direction. And one thing that I noticed on Zoom that I really have to keep reminding myself about is sometimes there are delays in the sound when you're doing it over Zoom. Sometimes the screen will temporarily freeze. So you need to think about giving more time for students to respond than you would in a classroom, because there are delays before they're getting the information. And again, you can't do that if you're doing a recording, you have to do that live. And I found that with 6 students, I'm on my computer, and I found it was very easy to see all of them and to be able to see who was responding and who wasn't. Obviously, the more students you have, it gets a little bit more challenging, but I think as long as you have a pretty good sized screen and can see everybody and you're close enough to it, you can definitely get a feel for what the students are doing and assess their progress.
So I'm going to switch this over to Marcia Anucci, one of our master teachers and online seminar people. And while she's talking, I'm going to be paying attention to the chat.
And I will unmute. Hi, everybody. Okay, unlike my scripts that I do in my class, and I have those memorized, the English one I don't have quite so memorized. So when we set out to revise the Hebrew Through Movement Guide for Virtual Learning, we needed to keep the following in mind. We need to maintain social learning and honor the continuum in which students acquire language. Our students need to move, and they need to engage with authentic props, or the photographs, the pictures, the photographs that are on the cards. With this in mind, we first thought about directions we wanted the teachers to have to appropriately set up a virtual environment in their own space and in the students' homes. We wanted to provide directions to help teachers be intentional with how they introduce new terms. Linda did a fabulous job in her videos. How they model the commands and how they repeat the commands enough times to allow everyone to join in with the action. And again, the possible sound delay or glitches with video. We began to look at each level of the foundational unit. Our first challenge was to address the new learning environment and how that impacted the terms we could and could not use. Level 1 retains the same terms, but the way the teacher presents the terms and invites the students to join has changed in. Level 1 becomes more of a real introductory. You have that time at the beginning where you're speaking in English, and then you switch to then add in, to introduce those original 7 terms. And that level does not follow the basic format of what will then always be a Hebrew Through Movement lesson. It's the introductory, get us going. In level 2, we added the adverbs as in the original format. These, however, become even more helpful in a small space and allow for creativity. So la'at, maher, and bamakom become our friends because we want to keep them moving, but keep them safe and recognize what we have to work with. Also in level 2, instead of introducing terms to make smaller groups, such as klutza aleph, klutza bet, so we're gonna, when we do use groups, we're gonna call the kids by name, but for what we're introducing is new terms in level 2, we're now introducing the first set of nouns. So in the original guide, we use various objects that are in a typical classroom. Not all of these objects would be in each child's learning space, and if they were, they might not be in view of the camera. So we had a lot of words we kept looking at, well, we can't do this, we can't do this. So we chose Buba, Sefer, Kisei. For Buba, the students may choose a stuffed animal, an action figure, any type of doll. And we do have photographs from the Teacher Center with those also. All of these items can be easily integrated into commands using the previous terms. Again, we always have to think of how do the action, how are the verbs relating to the nouns, how do they all fit? In level 3, we continue to add more terms that will allow the students to move and engage with various nouns. With this in mind, we moved up the introduction of body parts for level 5. Everyone has their own body. We also included the terms masach, karov, rachok. Masach is screen, karov is near, rachok far. Since everyone will have a device with a screen, these terms also combine well with the other terms that have already been introduced so far and with others that will follow. Part of this also came out from a comment from one of Linda's students, I believe, right? Throughout the process, we asked ourselves if the nouns would be easily available to the students, and if they would, and if they were appropriate to use with the list of verbs. So all of our beginnings were really about what is easy, what do we have easy access to. In level 4, we added the last group of the basic 14 verbs and the body parts. Once 65% of students have mastery of the new level 4 terms, the teacher may begin to integrate the holiday units. We also include the terms for marker, pencil in level 4. In level 5, we introduce the color words and the term for paper and to draw. To simplify matters, we use the term bitseva, bitseva adom, bitseva kachol, tush bitseva laharim, tush bitseva kachol, lasim, tush bitseva adom al harosh. For this level, students will need a complete set of markers for the lesson. Perhaps this could be a supply that the school provides everyone at the start of the school year. Our guide for virtual learning includes more detailed directions and sample commands for levels 1 to 5. So we try to address some of the issues that we were hearing about or anticipating dealing in the format, this online format, and also what we want to continue maintaining the goals, the principles of Hebrew through movement. And again, echoing what Linda said about why we do it live is because we're always getting feedback from our students. And it's not just about the set script. You might have to change or modify, say it another couple times, or as Linda said, they got it, move on. Have another set of 3 terms ready because maybe everybody did it so quickly and you can actually move on to another lesson. Teachers who will be teaching students who have already completed levels 1 to 5 in the past year will be able to begin this new year with a warm-up of those previous terms and then introduce the Rosh Hashanah unit. If you're brand new, if the kids are brand new to Hebrew through movement, start at level 1, you'll get other holidays. The Rosh Hashanah will not be taught within the time frame, within the Hebrew through movement lesson in the first year. As teachers get better acquainted with their students and what is actually available in the learning space, there may be new terms to consider adding. They would, of course, need to be introduced within the Hebrew through movement pattern. So we left out shulchan, kisei, delet, ritzpah, because depending on what view, what you're actually seeing, how your view is set up, and what is with the students, you have to take all of that into consideration. And then also moving forward, and once there's a certain comfort level, maybe there will be more things that you're going to do with the pictures, and maybe kids will tack up a picture of a delet if it's not easily visible in their room, and then you want to add that in. Just so there is flexibility and adaptability within the guide. It is a guide, but always remember the 3s. We introduce the terms in groups of 3s, and verbs and the nouns, are going to support each other. And I guess that's my main pitch. And I tried to keep it short so there would be time for questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marcia. And I want to make sure that you know that in the front of the curriculum guide, there are sections that talk about smaller groups are better than larger ones, what lesson duration is, and we're going off of what happened with Linda. You might have different experiences. The location and the room setup, how do you deal with the room setup? And Linda's parents did some heroic things to make the space a little bigger for their kids. Kids might be in some really small space as you are, or they might have more room. You'll have to see how that plays out. And we also have information on what they need, whether or not you should mute or not mute the kids, gallery view, which is the recommended rather than a speaker focus, because gallery view, they can keep seeing themselves, how you deal with the props, energizing the learning, which is one of the questions that we had at some point, just like Linda's like this. And it's hard to tell whether the kids are with her, but at the end, and I put a note in the chat that at the very end of the Rosh Hashanah lesson, she debriefs the kids, and they were with her, there's no doubt. And that wasn't just because they were being recorded. So all of that. So one of the questions that Linda asked at one point, do you remember the question you asked us that maybe this group could be helpful with too?
Yes. I was wondering the best way to kind of help focus a student who might need a little more help during the lesson. When I'm in my classroom at the temple, I have a lot of madrichim that are involved with lessons, and one of them may go walk over towards where that particular student is, and that gets the student's attention, and they kind of get brought back into the group. And I'm still trying to figure out a way to do that effectively if I'm teaching over Zoom, because I don't want to single the child out. I don't want to call their name and call attention to them. I don't want them to feel badly if they haven't, been paying attention. And maybe they are paying attention, but I'm not seeing it because they just aren't responding. So if anybody has any thoughts on how to draw them in a bit, that would be terrific.
Gay, I just said, Gay, you want to unmute, and I wasn't unmuted. Go ahead, Gay.
Sorry. So I'm going to suggest what I would do in class. Most kids don't want to do it by themselves, but they're more than happy to do it with at least one friend or maybe two. And I think you can still do that on a screen where you can say, Sarah, Robbie, and Joey likpot. And they're not alone. So A, they can look at the screen, which encourages the social learning. And B, they're not alone, so nobody's singled out.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. A good technique for me to try.
Gal? Unmute. Gal, you have to unmute.
Oh, sorry. I thought you guys were doing it.
Oh, sorry.
I've been looking at all the online videos and like the groupings, which I really enjoy, and I've been wondering how I can do that virtually. So I've thought of three things so far. One is to have the kids wear like a specific color on the screen so that you can refer to the color of like their shirt or whatever. So it's still like a group of kids and they have like the visual reminder of what they're wearing instead of like feeling like they're being called out by their name. The other thing I can think of is the names on the screen. Like my screen name is Allie Wessels. You can actually change that as the person hosting the meeting, so you can change their name to reflect A, or Aleph, 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 and Bait, 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 and then their name after the Aleph, Bait. So they can like look at their screen and remember if they're an Aleph or in Bait. Those are just, but that's more like grouping specific because I've been thinking a lot about how that looks virtually. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Gal?
Okay, my thought is actually, if you know the kids, if it's not the first time maybe that you meet with them, actually to assign a leadership role to individuals. Perhaps you can take some time before, after the class to talk to a particular kid that you feel that he's maybe not paying attention and see there's so many things during the day. I think it's always good to kids, maybe if they can interact with this particular program after they had the run around or they did some activity that's a release, actually that they come to this activity with much more like in a calm way. So I think that actually leadership and always to, if you have a particular student that you see that is not really there, not focused, to talk after class or before class, if it's possible. I don't know. I never taught this virtually. I always do it in the classroom. So it's for me, it's a new experience as well.
So that's going to be for everybody, and I am hoping that sorry, I've got a baby choking in the background here. I am hoping that people will use the Facebook group as a way to communicate, to ask questions, and to play that out. I was quite taken by a question that someone asked early on in the chat, and I'm sorry I didn't write down their name, but they noted the relationships that Linda obviously had with these kids, and asked the question of, how do we build the trust of kids when we're starting the year like this, rather than, oh, it's March already. So that's going to be a challenge for everybody, unless you have a group that you've been teaching for a long time and just a couple kids are coming in, but especially if you're new, then it's a challenge. Ellen, go for it.
Well, I did also teach virtually starting at the end of March through the middle of June. And I feel like I got closer to my kids because of this. We were closer to the screen. I saw their faces. They saw my face. I don't know what it was, but I felt it was more, there was even more of a connection than in a classroom. So I feel like my new kindergartners and new students that I get, I'm not worried about making a connection to them, because I really felt that our connections got closer because of that. You're muted.
I know, and I was going to say, if anybody else has a thought, unmute yourselves, because then you'll pop up to the top of the list.
One of the
Go ahead.
One of the things we talked about in our group was not, for larger classes, not having everybody show up at once. Maybe breaking it into smaller segments. And again, having the kids coming in on smaller segments will also give you more opportunity to get to know them as individuals.
I was also going to say that I think there's no reason why you can't do just like you would do in a in-person class. You do some kind of introductions and fun way, kind of creative way. You can do it in Hebrew or English, some way of just, like your favorite kind of ice cream or whatever, where you're developing a connection with the kids and they're, they know something about you, or, do some kind of a bingo or something like that. So I think there's no reason why you can't do that virtually as well.
So one of the things that our teacher center is going to be creating, they did it for Pesach, I believe, was to create, there were two things they created. One were cards that had multiple pictures on a page, so that we weren't using a ton of paper, but that kids could cut out the ones they needed for a particular lesson and have them. And they also created at one point a bingo game, which once the kids have, the vocabulary lasim, and they can deal with the bingo game, it can all be in Hebrew. One of the things Lithsa would tell us, she's the one who developed this, is if you need to speak English, especially in the beginning, just do it. And if you're doing things to create relationships, you are going to do that in English. But once you switch into the Hebrew through movement mode, your goal is to try to stay 100% in Hebrew if you can that entire time. If something's going on that you really need to deal with a kid, that's a different story. But we've seen a lot of videos where people don't stay in Hebrew when they're in person. We believe that you can do it if you just give it a little extra thought, and the same thing for the virtual environment. We want them to hear it. We want them to be energized. We want them to be excited that they have this competency that they didn't necessarily have before.
Nechama?
Yes.
Nechama, I have a question. Would it be, someone posted about doing something on Padlet. Is it out of line to take the pictures and do some kind of something on Padlet or Quizlet or Kahoot that the kids could do? That would be a fun kind of quiz. Do they know what the terms in the pictures are? Even if you would do it like with the picture and then what the English word is, because a lot of them don't read Hebrew yet, kind of thing.
Right, which is why this is all oral. So I'm going to give
Yeah.
you an answer and people can have other opinions on it, but I'm going to give you the Hebrew Through Movement party line. The party line is that this is about kids moving through space, watching each other doing things for the most part. That use of a Padlet may very well be part of a Hebrew lesson that works out really well, but Lifsa taught us to encapsulate the Hebrew Through Movement lesson in what the principles were behind it. And then when you're done with that, if you want to play a game in Hebrew, although she always says Shimon Omer, you have to make sure you say the infinitive, Lasim Yadayim Al Rosh, rather than just say Yadayim Al Rosh. We want to keep the patterns going. So I would say if you have more time, then yes, you could do other things outside of that, but you will move really fast with the kids if you stick with the principles and play it out. But I think we need to be in contact with each other over time because, again, starting the year is new to us. It makes a whole lot of sense what we've done. Linda has shown us the way with her videos, but it's new. So, and what I'm hoping also is that once we get through this year, we'll be able to go back to normative Hebrew Through Movement, which is that in-person way of learning. We are out of time by a minute. This recording will be posted to the Hebrew Through Movement Facebook group, and it will be parked permanently on the HebrewThroughMovement.org website, so you'll be able to find it. We're hoping to do other kinds of things as the year moves on, and just stay in contact. I'm the best contact for you. You can reach me through the Hebrew Through Movement group. But please, there are a lot of people on this call. Make sure you communicate with the people you know especially, or those in your neighborhood, and be the supports that you need. But what we learned over the last couple months is, yes, Hebrew Through Movement can go online. It can honor the principles that we hold dear. And we hope that you find the ways to make that happen for yourselves. Thank you for being with us.